Now, that continued conflict in the Middle East is making major waves here at home, as well as in Michigan, ahead of Tuesday's Democratic primary. There's a push by some, including within the party, to vote uncommitted in protest of Biden's stance on the Israel-Hamas war. I am really excited about this group. Sabrina Siddiqui is a White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Good morning, Sabrina. Also joining us, foreign policy expert and political satirist Hagar Chemali. Hagar, welcome back. And along with Kurt and Malik, guys, with me all day long. Thank you so much. Hagar, I will start with you. There is a push for Michigan residents to vote uncommitted this Tuesday in the state's primary. What can President Biden do to repair the frustration that so many in the Muslim community are feeling because of the Israel-Hamas war?
You know, I have a lot of experience with this because I handled the Syria crisis at the NSC during the first 2 years of the Syria war. We met with numerous Syrian American constituents who were very upset about the policy at the time. And the fact is that the policy towards Syria at that time wasn't going to change. And I don't expect the policy in this instance toward Israel and Gaza to change significantly enough to make that community happy enough to not vote uncommitted or to vote for Biden. I find that strategy short-sighted, and they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, which we can get into. But the fact is that the Biden administration needs to listen to them more. From what I understand, the outreach to that community, while it came late, first of all, has been mostly about lecturing and mostly about apologizing for past policies or past statements, a lot about apologizing for the messaging, which is not what that community needs to hear. But the fact is, I can tell you from my experience, the most productive conversations I had back in the day with Syrian Americans, it was those who could recognize that the policy wasn't going to shift that much, but what they could try to do is get small wins and shift the policy here and there, or try to get more humanitarian aid, or try to get less of this, more of that, not stand there in a stubborn way and say, unless you change the policy, not only are we not going to vote for you, we're not going to meet with you. And that's what they're saying right now.
They are.
And I believe that voting uncommitted is a vote for Trump, and they know that. But doing this protest, it doesn't gain anything.
Really fantastic insight, Hagar. Sabrina, if I can bring you in here. Biden aides met with Arab officials in Michigan. The president visited the state earlier this month. Do you think that swayed voters at all?
I don't think that those conversations have done enough to sway voters I've spoken to, as well as Arab American local elected officials I've interviewed over the past few weeks in Dearborn and in Michigan more broadly. Look, you know, I do think that Hagar is exactly right in that the biggest challenge here is that the Biden administration is placing more emphasis on a tonal or rhetorical shift, but the policy in the region is not going to change. And what these voters are looking for is a shift in policy. They want the president to embrace a permanent ceasefire. He's only willing to call for a temporary ceasefire. They want the U.S. to restrict funding for Israel, at least during the course of this war. That's also not going to happen. And so, you know, the biggest challenge I think that the administration is facing is that they can't really meet the goals or the ambitions of this particular coalition of voters. But, you know, you have heard them, I think, increasingly, at least in some of these meetings they held in Dearborn, you know, increasingly express some regret for some of the rhetoric that came directly from the president himself, at one point casting doubt on the death toll in Gaza, you know, a statement on the marking 100 days since the hostages were taken by Hamas that made no mention of Palestinian deaths. So they are, at least, I think, trying to recognize in some of these internal meetings that there have been missteps, even just in their public statements. But, you know, it's just not clear how they're going to close the gap. And simply drawing the contrast with former President Trump is not working.
Malik, do you think the uncommitted movement will gain enough traction going into Tuesday's primary in Michigan?
No, I think it's the same thing that happened in Nevada with Nikki Haley, where it was, I think, like none of these candidates or something. It really didn't have a factor. But our colleague, she really made a very good point. When Joe Biden initially cast doubt on the numbers from the Hamas health ministry, which is, according to the UN and a lot of those organizations, those numbers have been validated. The very next day, he had to meet with Arab leaders who were upset about that because they saw that as a slight against Palestinians. So very hard.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.